Welcome to Think Tank, raising Think Tech. What did I just do? raising public awareness about technology, energy, globalism, and diversification. As part of the Think Tech series, today's show is The Arts in Hawaii. I'm your host, Donna Blanchard, Managing Director of Kumukuhui Theater, and joining me is my guest, artist Meleanna Meyer. Today we're going to talk about how Meleanna lives art in Hawaii. Remember that we broadcast live on the internet at 2 o'clock and 4 p.m. every weekday. All of our shows are streamed live on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. And if you want links to our live streams or our previous broadcasts, just go to thinktechhawaii.com. And if you want to join us in our downtown studio gallery for any of our shows, just write to j@thinktechhawaii.com. Thank you so much for being here, Meleanna. I am honored to have you here, and it's kind of a strange stream of events that led you here, sitting next to me for this conversation. I was at First Friday in Chinatown with a friend who introduced me to you, and I remember looking at your art and thinking, I haven't seen anything like that before. I don't even know how she did that. And I was very intrigued, and as we were walking away, my friend Will Kahele said, you should have her on your show. And then I got in touch with you, and really not knowing me or what we were doing here, you said yes, and that's very cool that you did that.
Well, you know, as an artist, whether you're an educator or practicing artist in any field, the answer always has to be yes, initially, anyway. In other words, the opportunity, if it presents itself, it's always a yes.
Yeah. I like that about you. And not only was I very intrigued by your art, but I Googled you and learned a little bit more about you, and then we had one brief meeting to get to know each other a little bit, and I wish that I didn't overuse the word awesome so much, because I would like for it to have the full impact when I say that I think the work that you do is awesome. And that work involves film, painting, collaborative art, teaching, expressing yourself in as many ways as possible, with as many people as possible, and as many, always with a mission, always with a heart.
Absolutely, it's got to be that way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, life is too long. So,
well,
thank you.
You are currently, we didn't get you mic'd up.
Oh, do we need a
May I?
mic?
Would you
Oh,
forgive me?
please.
Jay Fidel visiting for just a moment here. You are working currently on a film,
Correct.
Ku'uaina Aloha,
Correct.
and we're definitely going to talk about that in depth. Do you want to get us a little teaser about that?
You know, it's a piece. It's a piece. It's an offering, actually. It's a ho'okupu, meaning it's a very special offering to the community, the larger community, and the Hawaiian community about truth telling and healing, and what we're trying to do today to understand our present circumstances in the context of history and in the truthful telling of Hawaii's history. And I, as an artist, tend to be a lot more interested in not just talking heads, so this piece will be a visual poem, like a mandala meets ashes and snow. In other words, there's going to be, it's a work that will involve a lot of collaboration, and it'll be a brilliant piece of new documentary that will share with audiences the full scope of what our history has meant to us and what we plan on doing in the future. So it's actually a really important work that has to do with Lili'uokalani as our constant leader as well. So I'm very excited about it. Yeah.
And so I'd like to go back and talk about you. When you mentioned the Queen, didn't one of your aunties was an advisor?
Right, my aunt Aima Navahi was my great-grand aunt, and she was a confidant of the Queen's. And that's important because that actually started this whole journey with letters that were given to me by a colleague and that remain in the archives. So I've had a chance to look at those letters. There's a cache of 40, 10 were translated. But recently, in the last year, a very dear friend, Meleanna Meyer, has translated the other 30 letters. So they've never been translated before. There's new information. It really speaks to the relationship that the Queen and my aunt had and the rapport they had, because my aunt was also a newspaper editor and owner in Hilo. So
Oh,
in 1897. So lots of things going on.
you come from a line of female movers and shakers.
Absolutely. And I have 5 sisters to prove it.
Who are moving and shaking.
Exactly, and a brother as well, and he does amazing things. I'm very proud of the fam.
Having grown up with 6 sisters,
Yeah.
I'm sure he is an amazing man.
Well, good thing he was young, because he's the youngest in the group, so I didn't quite know what to do with him. But the guy fended for himself. He did very well. Just kidding. But,
So, growing up in this household, I get the feeling that you grew up with a lot of love,
a lot of love,
a lot of expression,
a lot of
freedom.
expression, a lot of discipline. In a big family, you have to have those things. My mother was really smart. She just kept us busy and said, I'm going to have you do this, and I'm going to have you learn this and that. And I was one of those young ones that just needed to be busy with my hands. So when I was young, she actually said, okay, and I love clay, so she got me this little kiln and just said, just don't burn down the garage, just carry on and do whatever you're going to do out there, just keep yourself busy.
What age?
I was 12.
Okay, that's a powerful toy for a 12-year-old.
Well, it was, because it gave me great independence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the start of many extraordinary little adventures for me.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, a little successful moment like that, and then at 13 I taught. She said, now you're going to teach? I said, Mom, I'm just a kid. I can't do any teaching. She said, oh, yes, you can. The kids are smaller than you. They're 7 and 8. So anyway, that really started that ambition to just always want to create and be able to envision and work to bring something to life, So, yeah.
To create something.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful that you learned at an early age the magnificence of that,
And then-
growing something
absolutely.
or creating
Absolutely.
something.
It was just the best thing ever.
Do you feel like you were expressing yourself then consciously?
That's a good question. I think what's great about the arts and creativity for young ones is that you have a chance to explore and ask questions with your hands, not just with a linear set of sequential things. You're exploring, you're asking what if, you're understanding the mechanics of something. So all of that has sort of, really engaged me very early and enabled me to think that I could actually possibly do anything I wanted to, which was kind of dangerous.
Wow.
My dad said I can't do cars. I wanted to learn how to do cars, but I wanted to learn how to use power tools after that.
Are either of your parents artists?
Actually, they are appreciators of the arts. My father loves to write poetry, and my mother was always very much a supporter of the arts. And she actually had the first art gallery in Kailua when I was 12 years old, called the Young of Heart Gallery. So my sister Miley and I in particular, did a lot of art, and we're always part of that conversation. So.
And is anyone else in your family an artist? Any of your siblings?
You know what? I would say they're all creatives. And I think that's just really important for people to know, is that you're all creatives. And it's just a matter of finding what you love to do.
Yeah.
And I can tell you there are many incredible things, whether it's cooking, daydreaming, gardening, writing, singing. I mean, the arts are not limited. They're not limited in scope. Yeah. It's just that notion of being creative that's so important.
And when I ask if they're artists, that's exactly where I'm going.
Yeah.
Not that someone makes a living doing it. And
I'm the only one that's crazy enough to have tried that.
To try to make a living.
Yeah, and that's why I teach as well, too, because that really pays the bills.
I hear you, sister.
Yeah. I can't eat a painting, it's not very tasty. So
I was talking with a friend about art and the creative process, and
Right.
this is a friend who is very pragmatic, numbers-driven,
Right.
CPA. He said, well, I don't know, maybe I'm an artist what about looking at a fire?
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about his appreciation of the artistry that is a burning fire in the fireplace. And I said, I don't know. I can't really answer that question, but as
Okay,
long as you
that's-
have the question.
Yeah. I think that's a stretch.
Yeah.
In other words, I mean, there's beauty in all things, and nature generates the beauty.
Yeah.
Nature is our greatest teacher and our greatest inspiration. So I think maybe that's what he's talking about more than anything else. But my son, actually, when you talk about fire, my oldest son Jeff is a firefighter, but he loves to film and take photographs, because I gave him my camera when I got a camera when I was 17, and I actually was able to give him that camera, as old as it was. But it's just great to know that there's legacy in everything we do if we are conscious about what we do. So, that's
Yeah.
important.
And appreciation of what is within us and the person sitting next to us.
Absolutely, and the ability to interface, and the understanding that everything's about relationship. And you can see it with paint and color, you can see it with clay and glazes. I know that sounds simplistic, but if you think about art, it's really all about the relationship between things, whether it's people and their musical instruments, or artists and their film and their expression that way. I mean, it's just a very related experience, creating art. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so at a very young age, you started teaching even younger kids.
Yeah.
And did you just continue? Did that
It just kept me out of trouble. It was wonderful, and I loved it. And I actually met somebody about 2 years ago who walked up to me and said, "Are you Melly Meyer?" And I went, "Yeah." He says, "You won't believe this, but you were actually my teacher when I was 7 years old, and I think you're about 13. And I said, "Oh my God," I thought, maybe I made up that story, but he confirmed, yes, indeed, we actually had that kind of an experience. So I love teaching because I get to learn.
Yeah.
So that whole notion of exchange, again, is really important. So yeah, I've been teaching since I was that age, and I've never stopped since. So.
And you went to, did you have arts programs in school?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, through high school, and then through university. I mean, I committed to the arts, and so I started in architecture and have a love for architecture, but finished in design and photography. Yeah, at Stanford. So.
You're my third interview in a row that has had an architecture as the start.
Yeah.
And one is primarily a director and fight choreographer and
Okay.
writer, and one is a director and actor.
Interesting.
And now you. And all
Fascinating. Well,
something there. So
yeah,
one of
there's
these
something
days
there.
I'm going to get to the bottom of why that is a place from which so many people who really blossom
Yeah.
with art come.
well, anyway, there are a lot of stories, lots of good stories about it. So.
You went to University of Hawaii at Manoa, did you?
Got my master's there, and my bachelor's at Stanford in California. Yeah.
And you spent some time in Florence.
I did. I
with
spent
students.
almost a year there studying architecture, design, and language and history. Yeah, and I spent time actually visiting with Henry Moore in England, an idol of mine. I spent time with Buddhist monks for 3 months in France. I just had the time of my life, actually. So.
Buddhist monks in France.
Yep, part of the story, dear. Part of the story. Yeah. So.
Okay, maybe we'll circle around and get back to the
All right.
Buddhist monks
Yeah.
later. What was your primary medium? You started off with clay.
Right. My interest actually went straight to photography.
Okay.
So, and that actually kind of explains film in a way. My interest in moving images. I mean, because I really loved photography, so I spent a lot of time with photography, and I actually had wonderful teachers at Stanford. I had Leo Holub, who was a brilliant photographer, and a wonderful painter, printmaker named Nathan Oliveira. So I actually gravitated to these men because they were large hearts, great and spirited men, and very talented souls. So I was very fortunate. Yeah.
You spent a lot of time, I don't want to say being an activist, I want to say expressing the full scope of who you are
Right.
here.
Absolutely.
And do you feel like that has always been the case, or was there a time when you realized, oh, I need to pay attention.
Well, you know, I come from a family that's very socially minded, social minded, and committed to community work, and that includes my incredible cousins, Dr. Emmett Aluli and my cousin Euclid and my cousin Mihana, and there's a whole range of people. But the commitment that I have to community and to things active or activist, as I would say, really began when I was in university. I actually, you know, had a kid when I was a freshman say to me, "Hey, who are all those people on the wall?" And I said, "That's my family." And he goes, "What about that lady? She looks Oriental, doesn't she?" And I said, "Oh my God, that's my mother. And yes, she's, you know, Chinese and Hawaiian." And I was just so shocked. I just didn't quite get where he was going. And he was so embarrassed. He said, "You know, she's different."
He didn't know.
And I just went, wow, does that make me different? So I was kind of, you know, activated, you know, to a consciousness, and then my consciousness was raised when I was 18. I know it's late, but hey, I was always a bit of a late bloomer in that regard.
That's earlier than many. We'll pick up there. We need to take a short break here.
All right.
This is Think Tech Hawaii. I'm Donna Blanchard of Kumukuhue Theater. The show is The Arts in Hawaii, and I'm talking with Meleanna Meyer. We'll be back in just a few moments. Hi, we're back and we're live. I'm Donna Blanchard from Kumukuhue Theater. This is Think Tech Hawaii. The show is The Arts in Hawaii, and I am talking with Meleanna Meyer, and we're going to pick up exactly where we left off, and I don't always do that. Sometimes breaks are a nice place to make a segue, but I don't want to miss a thing. So, I don't want to insult the guests that I've had in the past, but so I want to go back to, you were 18 when you realized that your family was different.
Yeah. Well, I was different. I mean, people always said I was a little out there, but I don't want to blame or lay responsibility for that on my dear siblings or parents. But different in the sense that I realized for the first time that if I was viewed as other, wow, what did that mean? And then it just sort of got me curious about, okay, so what is that in relationship to history, to where I come from? Because when we were growing up in the 70s, it was like everybody looked like me. Everybody was, you know, a mix of something. And that was one of the questions you asked people. It was like, where are you from? What's your name? Meaning, what's your family? Where are you from in that regard? Which island? Where did you grad? Kind from high school. Who cared about college? And then what were you? So those things, you know, really sensitized me to diversity, and then to the importance of culture and place, where I came from, who I was, you know, the genealogy of my family, And then I just, things were happening in the 70s. My cousin Emmett, was landing on Kaho'olawe, and that was, trying to get the bombing stopped there. And
Was he in the original?
yeah, he was one of the originals. And then I was raising children at the time, which was great and wonderful. But I just saw that there was a great need to do more, to contribute. So I come from that tradition anyway, and I was able to accept that a lot more as I grew older. I thought, okay, what can I do? And I know being creative kept me out of trouble. It gave me a reason to get up and be excited about things, and I could dream about being anything I wanted to be. And so it was a way for me also to give back in very, very concrete ways. So yeah.
That's inspiring. I think that everyone should have an opportunity to experience being other.
Yeah, I agree. It's very important. And in Hawaii, everyone is other.
Yeah.
So that's the cool part. You can't lay claim to going, oh yeah, I'm the majority here. No, actually, you're actually a citizen of the world. You belong to a home. You've got a host culture here. You've got local culture, and you've got that context of global, but it's all enveloped in this extraordinary place that I call home.
Yeah.
It's a real gift to call Hawaii home.
And I love that about, I definitely believe it's a gift to call
Yeah.
Hawaii home. And
Yeah.
I love it that everybody says that here,
Yeah.
or people who grew up here
Yeah.
get it, that
Yeah.
this is special. And I'm a Midwest farmer's daughter. I did not get a chance to be other until I came here, and it was a very eye-opening,
Sure.
stretching experience.
For
It
my
was
father as
very
well,
nice.
because he's actually from Illinois, from
Oh.
Belleville, Illinois.
Oh.
So his German English roots were very tested here. But he had the good sense to marry my mother, so there you go. Thank you, Dad.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
So when did collaboration come in?
Oh my goodness, collaboration came in when I was about 6 years old, because my dear sister, who I'm very close to in age, she's just about 15 months younger than I am. She and I were always like, make something, don't buy anything at the store kind of stuff. So I've been in collaboration my whole life. But more importantly, and most importantly, there's so many opportunities, whether it's in film or mural work or teaching or writing. The best work is done in collaboration. Anybody who thinks it's done by themselves is kidding themselves. I mean, I do great work by myself, but I do better work with people.
I need for you to explain how that happens, what that looks like. I saw the piece in the Pacific Room.
Right. The Pacific Hall, right?
Yeah, Pacific Hall,
Right.
beg your pardon. And before then, I've seen the murals in Kaka'ako, and I know
Convention centers
how-
are one I'm really proud of.
Yeah, let's tell the story of that one. How does it happen that people collaborate?
30 people can create something in 6-7 days. It's magic.
I think you're
Yeah,
right.
no. And actually, I believe that if you prepare, and I call it front load and research, and really coordinate efforts and vision well together, that anything is possible. Granted, you have to have a skill set and a technical level that you bring to your work, but it's all about process. You brainstorm, you do your working sketches, you talk a lot, you refine. It's like for any art form. But you have to have the confidence in the people you're working with, and the vision and hope that something extraordinary will happen, and that you have in mind a vision, again, an offering, an opportunity to give to a larger cause. And our cause was a response to APEC, a visual response, because we wanted to say, hey, guess what? We know we're not in the conversation, but instead of holding placards and signs outside and protesting, we have something else creatively in mind. We're going to tell you about indigenous wisdom that is, and we called it new old wisdom, as in let's use old traditional values and wisdom in new ways, so that you, APAC, and others can see that it's not all about, rape and pillage. It's not all about resources for the few. It's really about relationship, kuleana, responsibility to the planet, to the resources, to sharing, an economy of scale. So it was that opportunity, and we talked some wonderful dear friends who I love and adore as artists, and a number of young ones that I have worked with to train. So to me, it's like a little mini art school, because in a very short amount of time, a team of 30 of us was able to create that amazing 64 by 10 foot piece.
It's mind-blowing. So you're
Yeah, it
talking
is.
about sketching. You're doing the sketching, you're having conversations,
Right.
you're doing the sketch.
We are. In other words, everyone's doing their work, and then I'm saying, oh, okay, I like that part, I like this from everyone's sketches, and then we redraw, we think, we add another person. I'll give a pencil to and say, okay, what about your idea? And then it's a refining, you know. So it's a lot like a symphony, actually. You know, you got a little conductor person, and you know, people who are writing the score. It's a little tricky because we're writing the score as we're playing, so it's a little stressful. But these folks all know how to do that.
It's ensemble work.
It is ensemble work, and it's powerful. It's the most powerful thing I've ever experienced. Yeah.
So just the story of it is
Yeah.
powerful.
Oh, my goodness.
So then you're working with someone like Solomon Enos,
Right? And there's some ones in my life who I love and adore. Al Lagunero. So he's like he's the elder, the kupuna artist in our group, and he's a teacher. You know, he's a teacher for all of us because he knows deep culture, and we're always learning. And then there's Kahi Ching, Harinani Orm. I mean, incredible people, gifted people who are committed as artists to not only their craft but to community, because that's what we're doing. We're building community as we work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
I love the fact that community murals,
Yeah.
despite sometimes when they're in the worst of neighborhoods,
Right.
are very rarely graffitied.
Of course, of course,
because the community's invested.
And of
in
course,
those.
and that's what it's all about. It's all about vesting and belonging to something. And there's incredible work being done everywhere. So there's so many young ones and colleagues that are doing extraordinary things. Estria Miyamoto is doing amazing work in town, and he's got this great project that we're going to be working on, and I'm so excited about it. Because it's just a privilege to work with other creatives, you know? It's like a family. It's
Yeah.
really cool. It's a great family
I bet
experience.
that's a magnificent 7 days when
Yeah.
you're putting it all together.
And you know, there's no guarantee it's going to work. I mean, people say to me, well, did you know this is going to work? And I'm going, no. But you pray a lot, you hope a lot, you dream and you work a lot, and you keep working till you get something that you like.
Has it ever not worked?
Well, fortunately, knock on wood, it continues to work because it's all about faith, you know. It's faith in the process. And we have done just some crazy things in short time, and you just kind of go, how did that happen? You just believe, and you honor the ancestors, you honor the place, you ask for help. It's not all about you, it's about what you can do with the collective. You know, you can't go wrong if you really get what the process looks like.
Right.
You know, really.
And there's
Seriously.
no right or wrong. There's no fail in it.
No, and you know, people say, well, can we have a maquette to have a sense about what you're doing? Well, sort of. We could invent one for you, but we're going to go, who knows where we're going, you know? So the Bishop Museum piece was incredible because we'd never done a three-dimensional piece before. And it was so exhilarating.
It is beautiful.
Well, I actually like challenges. I don't think of it as something unnerving, except for this incredible, fabulous film that I've been working on for 8 years. But it's just because film is not my normal métier. It's not my normal medium, which is why there's always a little bit of, you know, bump along the way, you know? Because I teach and I draw and I paint and I think in that realm every day. So that makes that experience very much easier. But, you know, it's important to tell stories, which is why I have wanted to do film. And I've done 2 or 3 pieces, and that I'm really proud of because they tell important stories, which is why film is so incredibly critical, because you can reach so many more people that way.
You reach so many more.
Yeah.
And theater's next for you.
Yeah,
You know.
You know it is, but there's no way I'm going to be behind the camera. In fact, I've done theater sets, and I was inspired by The Rake's Progress and the sets that were done by David Hockney. So I was so inspired. I actually went to applied to graduate school for theater on the East Coast.
Oh.
Another high-paying job.
Yeah. Yes.
I just went, okay, maybe I'll pay. No, I'm just kidding about the paying part. I've already done 5, 6 sets for HTY when Mark Wack was here, and it was great. But I just felt that was another volunteer project by the time you add it all up. But I had a great time. I'm very inspired to do anything that's new and creative. So.
Okay, everybody heard that.
I know.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. I'm Donna Blanchard of Kumukuhui Theater, talking with Meleanna Meyer. This is Think Tech Hawaii, and the show is The Arts in Hawaii. We'll see you in a few. Hello, we're back and we're live. This is the Arts in Hawaii on Think Tech Hawaii. I'm Donna Blanchard, Managing Director of Kumukuhui Theater, and I'm talking with Meleanna Meyer, artist extraordinaire, collaborator extraordinaire. Let's talk about the documentary. Let's get into
Let's
that.
do.
So, but this is not the first film that you've done. You have a couple in the bag already?
Yeah, and I had an extraordinary experience on the subject of meeting extraordinary people and working with extraordinary people. I come from a fabulous family also of musicians. So my auntie Irmgard Aluli, Farden Aluli, I always wanted to do a film about my growing up because, we play ukulele in the backyard and dance and get together, and that was my growing up. So I met Les Blank in 1987 in the dark ages when we were still shooting film, 16. And I said to him after watching all of his work, I said, Mr. Blank, and he was in town, and I just walked up to him and shook his hand and said, hi, Mr. Blank, my name is Meleanna Meyer, and I'd like to make a film with you. Have you ever made a film before? No. Okay, let me consider it. So I sweet-talked this very famous documentarian into coming to Hawaii to make a film about my very famous auntie and her musical group, my cousins. And it was such a privilege, and it was such a turn-on. It was so exhilarating. I just went, oh my God, too bad I didn't have this in school as an offering, because I would have done film at university. But the story was important, because it's important for me as a Hawaiian woman to be able to say to others that our stories matter, who we are matters. our voices, our songs, our histories. And this was an opportunity, and I took it. Had I ever written a grant? No. Had I ever done any of these things? No. But I think that's just kind of like my nature. It's like, oh, let's find something else to do. So, and I had an incredible experience. The Fuamana screened at the International Film Festival in '91, and believe it or not, it's screening again this year. Newly digitized, and I'm really excited. Unfortunately, Les Blanc passed this year, so it's an opportunity also to honor him and my beloved aunt who passed many years ago. But it's a beautiful little gem of a film.
Oh, I'm anxious to see
Yeah,
it.
so I'm thrilled about it. So we'll have a panel discussion about legacy and archiving and the necessity to do that in Hawaii for the work that's done. And then these other films, a wonderful film called Onipa'a that was done with David Kalama. I assisted him. And that was about the events that happened to commemorate 100 years of an overthrow, which is very much in active conversation in all of our lives today. And then a piece called Ho'okui Kahi, which means to unify as one. And it's a really important piece about the heiau at Kauai High on Hawaii Island, and what Hawaiians are doing to come together, to share practices, to relearn their language, all the good things that we're doing. So it's a beautiful piece. I'm very proud of it. And my beloved Kumu Keola Lake. Yeah.
And so the first documentary, how long from start to finish?
Start to finish was 2 years, 3 years maybe, 3 years.
Okay.
And then the other was 7 to 8. And then Onipa'a to help David was about 3. And this one's coming in a little bit longer because it's also twice as long as anything I've done. Ku'aina Aloha, it will be a feature-length film. And so, the budget reflects that. So we've shot in Super 16 and high def, and we might have to go to red as well by the time all is said and done. So it's a lot more complicated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So you're always happy to talk to potential investors.
Absolutely. So if you're out there, call me up or email me. No, because it's important work,
Yeah,
and I'm I'm really excited about it, and so I won't be anything else but forthright and say, hey, I could use some help now.
So did you write it?
Actually, we're on draft number 26, and David and I have given it a shot for about 8 or 10 of those drafts. Others have come in and really given good material, but it's really hard, again, to do work like this with something scripted, because that's not in my nature or my purview to work with something that says this is what it will be. Film is like anything else, because I love to cook. So you have parameters. Okay, so here is your meal, but then from there, just get out of my way, and I'll cook you an extraordinary meal, because I know how to cook. I'll read recipes. If you're inspired about something, great. Let's add that in. But the experience of a creative is to do just that, to find the magic in what you're doing and the alchemy of things and how they all work together. So I have an extraordinary bunch of people. Alice Walker is our executive director of The Color Purple. She saw a piece I'd done earlier and loved it and said, how can I help you?
Wow.
I said, hey, you want to be the executive director for this next film? And she said yes. And Alan Bollinger, one of Peter Jackson's shooters from New Zealand, came up to help. Mera Tamita was on the project as well before she passed, unfortunately. I have incredible people involved in this work, and David and I are now doing this piece together.
So here's something that I work the same way in the kitchen. I'll read a recipe, but then you can't hold me to that.
No,
that's why I don't like baking so much, because
no,
it's
I know.
like
I'm not a baker
science.
either. I'm not a baker either.
But okay, so give me a minute to go through all of this. As an actor,
Right.
when I started as an actor, you
Right.
have a very firm deadline for your work.
Yes.
You carry with you, that piece stays with you forever, but
Right.
you have a deadline for the actual work. I eventually started painting,
Right.
and had a hard time finishing. And there are still pieces that I look at on my wall and think, oh, maybe a little more red over there.
Absolutely.
So when you're working on a film, and the recipe and the theater and the painting all are finished at different points.
Right.
As I age, I feel, I like the recipe a little bit differently now. So when you work on a project for 8 years, there must be so much evolution going on and to come.
Yeah.
So that decision to stop, how do you make that?
Well, I think I have a lot of kuleana, meaning responsibility, to the people who have supported the work, because I've raised, a third of the budget, and it's a huge project. Mm-hmm. So I've raised $500,000. And the reason I'm telling you that is because people go, well, just finish it. And I said, really? I only want to do things that are excellent and extraordinary. So if you want to do excellent and extraordinary, you're not going to do it with the attitude, just finish it. Right. And this piece is building a soul. It is ready to be birthed. I've got production lined up through December if I can find the remaining funding. So I really, really am excited about this piece because I know it has the potential to do some very positive things in the community. And I don't mean just the Hawaiian community. It's a piece about indigeneity. It's a piece about reverence for the land. It's a piece about understanding a different sense of why we're here on the planet. So it's a very timely piece, and I think it's got great relevance to a lot of what we've been talking about. So it still seems to me that it must be hard to know when to exhale, when to say, this is extraordinary, and I'm going to think so tomorrow also. Well, I think our lives are like that. I think our lives are writ large, meaning each of us has our story, each of us has our purpose. And part of my purpose is this film work because it also is a heritage. It's something I actually come from a line of orders and people who are kakauali'i, kakau mo'olelo, people who recorded and documented. And I found that, out in the last 10 years or something, and then it makes sense why I do what I do. So it's like, whoa, this is so cool. Yeah. And it doesn't make it easier necessarily, it just makes it more serious, I suppose. I have a responsibility, I think everyone does, to someone, something, somewhere. At some time. I think that's really important.
Yeah, the tools that you have, the tools that you were given, that you naturally have is your mission to use.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. And I don't want to waste it, And granted, people make 3 films in their career, but I have to teach and make a living and do all these other things. Oh, and then I want to get to the film. So it's, people go, God, it's taking you a long time. I'm going, hey, listen, I'm doing all these other things, okay? I'm not just sitting around twiddling my thumbs, Yeah. But I would like to finish it by next year, fall or winter of 2014. That's the goal.
The story, and I look forward to seeing it.
Me too.
I
Me
expect
too.
great
Me too.
things.
Me too.
The stories to tell is, and we discussed this before, is the reason I'm here. That
Right.
I believe that telling our stories is universal.
Absolutely.
And it adds that globalism that we have to respect now. It is all of our kuleana to respect that. And in theater, we have an opportunity to take a piece and share it over the water,
Right. Correct. It's a good way to put it.
Film, definitely, you have opportunity to.
Well, that notion of globalization is really, or globally, is really problematic in a way, because what we want to do is make sure others have the opportunity to see and to hear and to learn. But it isn't as if we are one amalgam. We are one world, i.e. an Earth with a couple billion inhabitants, but each of us has unique stories. And I think depending on where we come from, there's so much to learn. There's so much to learn, and I think that's why story is that perfect vehicle. It is.
I got to take a break.
Okay.
This is Think Tech Hawaii. I'm Donna Blanchard. The show is The Arts in Hawaii. I'm talking with Meleanna Meyer, and we will be right back. Hi, we're back and we're live. This is Donna Blanchard with Kumukuhua Theater and Think Tech Hawaii. The show is The Arts in Hawaii, and I am talking with Meleanna Meyer. And we were just discussing story and
Right.
how it endears us to each other, as well as, before I came here, I didn't know very much about Hawaii. I thought it was just another state because nobody had said anything different. There was no information. There was no. I saw just a few days before we moved here. I saw the film. What was the George Clooney film?
Oh my God, The Descendants.
The Descendants,
Right.
which was the largest taste I had had up until that point, except for some reading material that Mark Lutwack had recommended to me.
Right.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
The story is
we
not.
have a lot for you to work with.
Well, and everyone back in the Chicagoland
Right.
is what we need to do.
That's the reason film's so important. And that's the reason this piece is so important, Kauai and Aloha, because I want you all to go look at the Pinky Show. And I hope that's okay to say. It's about this little cat that will tell you all about Hawaii history, and it's really important because in 20 minutes on video, because this is Think Tech after all, so I want to be able to say, hey, Google that and look up Hawaii versus U.S. imperialism, and you will learn everything you've ever wanted to know about Hawaiian history in 20 minutes. And what's so important about that, Donna, is that there are vehicles on all platforms that are accessible. So the ignorance that we all have of each other's cultures it's no longer kind of acceptable.
It's not okay
It really
anymore.
is not okay. So I'm glad you've come to find out that you are actually in another country. People always say, gosh, it feels like this is another country. And there's a reason for it, because it is.
It is.
And the paradox is 50th state and sovereign nation of Hawaii. Liliuokalani did not, and I have to say, that's part of the lesson of doing documentaries, how much you learn. You find out historically what really did happen, that there was no annexation. You cannot annex two countries with a resolution. It's called a treaty. There were no treaties of annexation. It was a smoke and a mirror thing. My international friends, a Swiss consul says, Niklaus Schweitzer says it's called prolonged occupation. People do not want to hear that. But the more you hear it, the more you go, okay, well then maybe I'll have to accept it, or find out about it, or see if that is indeed true. So this whole process for me of becoming an activist is just finding out the truth, and then going, oh my God, I'm not going to sit here and not do anything.
Right, and then you can say, here's the truth.
Here's the truth. I don't have to jump up and down. I can paint you a mural. I can make a film for you. You can decide whether you're going to believe it or not. But I've done my work. My kuleana is pau because I've done the work in good conscience, and I want to share that. So as an artist, I can have a great big smile and tell you all these crazy, horrible things that have happened here, because this was Hawaii. This was the U.S.'s first incursion into takeovers of countries. There's a book by Stephen Kinzer. It's called Overthrow: From Hawaii to Iraq, and it gives you that education of seeing how many countries this has happened to. And it's not pleasant for me to say. I don't want to disturb somebody's vacation or something.
And that's part of the issue, is that there are a lot of people coming here. I came here to serve Kumukuhua Theater, which is devoted to
fabulous
the people
local
of this
story
land.
and fabulous.
But there are people who come here to lay in the sun and drink Mai Tais.
That's about 99% of the people who end up here. Yeah.
However, it's difficult to get those people to come sit in a dark theater while they're here for a week.
Sure.
They'd rather sit on the beach and watch the sunset.
Sure, absolutely.
But when we have a beautiful mural that also tells this story, we have that over here. And we have a beautiful, the piece at the Bishop Museum, Mapoina. Are you familiar with that piece that Annie does? And I don't think I ever got Annie's last name, the actress who performs that.
Well, My Poina also is a piece that was done at the Palace. And it's part of a series of educational work that we've all done since 2007. Actually, 2006, I sweet talked all these crazy people into changing the direction of our conversation. In other words, redirecting so that we're talking about honoring Lili Uokalani for her birthday, which is September 1st. Come at the Palace. We're going to have a wonderful time, educational materials, and Mai Puina is part of a tour at the end of the day, this living theater, and it's fantastic. But it's a positive reflection instead of commemorating an overthrow in January. I said, no, our leader of peace, like Mandela and Gandhi and King, is Lili Uokalani. So let's celebrate her birthday.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that now since 2006. Because I thought it was a great idea. And we talked a whole bunch of other people into thinking it was a great idea too, and I'm so grateful.
You just did that in your spare time too.
Well, you know,
But
thought it was a good idea and needed to happen.
as long as the information is there and
Yeah.
continues to be there, it cannot be ignored, and it's difficult to hear.
It is difficult to hear. And you know, it's difficult for Hawaiians to hear. So I just don't want anybody out there to think it's just a matter of, you know, those people, whoever those people are, because in our own community we struggle. And that's why the Hawaii Ponui Coalition is so wonderful. And that has developed since 2007 in response to Lili'u's birthday celebrations. Hawaiian organizations are coming together. People are talking across our differences. We're able to be in a room and say, hey, I don't agree with that, but let's work together anyway. So I want to say to the larger community, great things are happening in the Hawaiian community. Certainly so much more needs to happen. But creatively, through the arts, a lot can happen that can heal not only our nation, but everyone who lives in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and that's, there are very few people who are 100% Hawaiian.
Just a handful.
Yeah.
Just
so,
a handful.
So everybody who is involved in these art projects
Right.
brings so many other cultures to the
Of
table
course, of course.
that are all here and working together. I think that for the first time you hear the story, and
Yeah.
I wish that this interview could be shown on airplanes as people arrive to
Yeah.
know that it's okay. It hurts when
Yeah.
you hear it at first, but nobody's saying, and get out.
Nobody's saying that. That's not in our culture. You know, the aloha is well and alive here for a good reason. So I think that's what people need to remember, and that truth is something that is immutable. In other words, it's something that really people need to deal with, and it will present itself, and it has no fear of time. So whether it happens in the work we do today, truth is something that is a great value to us all, and hopefully that is something that we aspire to share in our art.
As long as we continue to seek it, then
Absolutely.
it will.
So
Thank you so very much for
what
being
a wonderful
here
opportunity.
for this
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it, and thank you for watching and listening. I am Donna Blanchard, Managing Director of Kumukuhua Theater, here with Think Tech Hawaii. The show is The Arts in Hawaii. And I need to say a couple of things here. This has been Meleanna Meyer talking with us. Thank you so much for being here. I would like to also thank our producers, David Plona, our Communications Director, Chrissy Goffigan, and Jay Fidel,
Yay!
who manages to put it all together. And thanks to you for being here. Aloha. We'll see you again soon.
We hope.